Hi, I'm here to talk to you about the truth. Well, my truth. Although you may relate to it as well. This is part of the Sketchbook Project out of the Brooklyn Art Museum, or Art Gallery, I should say, in Brooklyn, New York. And I decided to go with the theme of truth. And why is that, you say? Well, every New Year's people come up with New Year's resolutions. For me, I like to come up with a word that I focus on for the year. And last fall, when I was figuring out what my word would be, I realized that I was really angry about how there are lies everywhere, fake news on all sides. And I thought about how that which we do not face within ourselves, we project outwardly. So I did an inward look at myself and where do I lie? And in general, I try to do my best with telling the truth with others, unless it would cause them harm. But when I dug deeper, I realized this is more about the lies I tell myself. And the number one thing that I came up with once I started the year was, I am angry. And it was lacking any specific direction or person or event. It wasn't any one thing. It was more that there was this overwhelming feeling of anger. And so I used that as my tip of the iceberg to delve deeper into what is my truth. Who am I? I am Maureen Frank, also known as the Mandala Lady, and I wanted to share with you what came up, what words and insights came up. So the very first page that I did was, I set it up so that on the left-hand side I would do a strictly black and white and would be the trigger word or trigger, and in this case started with anger. And then when I explored what would be the counterbalance to anger, and the word that came to mind was acceptance. And you'll notice that throughout a lot of these, the daisies are used. And for me, they mean unconditional love. While roses tend to mean more of a romantic love, daisies, for me, represent unconditional love. And the idea of acceptance and anger is that if you go into a mall and you know there's a particular store you want to go to and you see it on the map where it is, but unless you know where you are, you won't know how to get to where you want to go. So I find that accepting where you are, accepting that, so for me, accepting the fact that, okay, I admit I'm angry. Don't know what it's about, but I'm angry. And that's where I'm accepting that I'm angry. And now from that space, I can go start the journey of 1,000 steps to see, well, where does that all lead to? Well, for me, the next thing it led to was that phrase of, would you rather be right or would you rather be happy? And for the most part, I tend to want to be right, but as this drawing kind of shows, it feels like this is in prison. And when I'm in that space of I want to be right, I'm tense and that's anger as well. And I realized that, oh, how important is it to be right? So I decided I'd rather be happy. And that little butterfly just looks really happy. And the words I had written in on here too were, would I rather be imprisoned or free? Next, what I dug into was disappointment. And boy, that one triggered a lot, because it's not only disappointment with myself or my disappointment with others, but a big part of it was how I didn't want to disappoint others and that I was a disappointment. And I've actually had a couple of people tell me how disappointed they are in me, and that's just devastating. And what that does is it holds me back when I realized that, oh, I don't want to disappoint anybody, so I better not. If I don't do this, then I won't disappoint them. But in reality, what I'm doing is disappointing myself for not fulfilling whatever it is that I'm wanting to create. So, so what came out of that for the counterbalance was, it just has to be good enough. You know, let go of perfection and strive for excellence and do the best you can. Or for me, just focus on it's just be good enough. If you want, go back and do it more and make it better, whatever, then strive for excellence and let go of the perfection. The next one is betrayal. And there are instances where I feel I have been betrayed, and then I have in turn betrayed myself. But mainly this one was more about where I felt like I was betrayed by others. And the counterbalance for that one is, oops, I'm covering it up, is compassion. And the compassion has to do with not so much that I condone what others did, but I realized where they were coming from, and as I looked into it deeper. And so this is one, well, they're all kind of my favorite, but I love how this turned out, and that rather than a whole heart, it's a wounded, recovering heart trimmed with the scar trimmed in gold. And yeah, I just love that one. Next, when I first started going into therapy decades ago now, the term codependency came up, and that basically I was a flaming codependent. And what that means is that I care more about others than I do for myself. Now, granted, in some cultures, that's what you strive for, to care more about others than you do for yourself. And yet, how does that really serve? The idea is to be more interdependent, that we all help each other. But to do things based on what others will think is damaging to our souls. And so the counterbalance for that is I choose power. Now, let me explain power. Well, power actually, have you ever noticed when you walked along a sidewalk or a road that's paved over, how Mother Nature still manages to find a way to find the cracks and pop through? And so this kind of power that we're talking about is that our own inner power, that power that drives us, that it's not powering over others, it's mainly finding our own power to stand up and be true to ourselves, setting boundaries, going after that which makes our heart sing and thrive. And so be like the daisy, and I choose power. Next one. Okay, this may be a little hard to read, but it says hypervigilant. That one was an interesting one that I figured out what's going on, that I'm in a constant state of being vigilant, looking around, making sure I'm not doing anything wrong. I particularly notice that when I'm driving, like, oh, make sure no one's going to cut me off, or oh, it's silly stuff, or but I just was constant in this state of being in this state of alert. And I found that I'm also that way around other people, that I don't want to step on anybody's toes, I don't want to say the wrong thing, and blah, blah, blah. And so, but it just creates this energy of having to be constantly on my toes. I think there's some desert creature, I don't think it's like a weasel or prairie dog or something like that, where there's always one on guard looking around. And I feel like I've always had to be that way, to be on my guard at all times. And the counterbalance for that is surrender. It's just be aware, but just allow myself to just be present and just surrender to the moment, and just, yeah, somebody's probably going to cut me off in driving, or something could, yeah, maybe somebody does say something that I'm not doing something right, but to just, okay, rather than get defensive or upset or angry about it, is just to, all right, I hear what you're saying, and then decide whether I agree with that or where do I go from there. But to immediately go to anger serves nobody. And also, I included in here breathe in and breathe out. And with the Sanskrit so hum, so you breathe in on so hum, so hum, so hum. All right, I can calm down. All right, the next one is pride, which I'll turn this way. Now, granted, this word is associated with something very positive about people being true to themselves, but this kind of pride I'm talking about is that the type of pride that makes you feel like you're better than others, or that, oh, I'm special. And that's the kind of pride that's being talked about. It's very self-centered, very inward, and it tends to come with a sense of entitlement and all of that BS. But all of that comes from feeling insecure, that when I am secure in what I'm doing, what I'm saying, what creating, whatever, then there's no need to be prideful. I can be proud of what I created, but to, look what I created. Look, I'm special, and that's just coming from a place of insecurity. So the counterbalance is to just, I am secure in all that I do. And it's different. I had somebody point out to me safety versus security. And that safety has to do more with what's outside of ourselves, while secure is an inside job. So to feel secure in who you are, so for me to feel secure in who I am and what I do, and secure in the fact that I'm probably going to make buku mistakes, and that's okay, because then I can learn from that and go on from there. This one, the next one is envy, and it's meant to represent like it's box within box within box within box. That it's just, envy is just deep down in this pit of boxes. And envy also can be part of that insecurity. And for that, we are using I am worthy. Oh, also and I actually had to look this up, between the difference between jealousy and envy is, jealousy is more related to someone, like usually in romantic type situations, or that you're jealous that, Joe is going to take so-and-so away from me or whatever. But envy is more that you want what somebody else has, that you envy somebody's possessions, you envy their career or whatever. And that also comes from a place of insecurity. But in reality, it's more like that there's sense of not feeling worthy of having whatever it is, nice car, nice home, whatever, and to just have this total sense of worthiness and unconditional love. Thanks for hanging in. If you're still here, thank you for hanging in there. We got a couple more. Guilt. This is a big one. I think the first therapist I ever went to, my first session, she stopped me. She asked me why I was there, so I went on for a couple of minutes, and she stopped me and she said, she was asking me if I would belong to a certain religion. I don't want to focus in on any one religion, but she asked me if I was a particular religion, and I said, yeah, I am. She said, well, most of the women that I see are related to that religion, and then the other half are related to a different religion. So Which is not to say that there's anything wrong with religion, but that at least when I was growing up, there was a way of manipulating so that you had to feel guilty. I mean, the fact that you're told that you're born a sinner, so, oh my God, what a horrible thing to do to a baby. Anyway, but I digress. Guilt. Boy, this one covers a lot. I feel growing up is just feeling guilty if I didn't do things right, if I didn't get a good enough grade, if it ties in with disappointment. So it just weighs heavy. I just saw this as weighing heavy on my heart, and these braces are barely holding it up. And on the opposite side, the balanced side, is freedom. It's just to let that go. It's a fine line between owning up to you actually doing something that warrants feeling guilty about. Let's say, so I've done this. I've taken the last piece of chocolate cake when my husband really wanted to have it, and there's some guilt there about, oh, I'm sorry I took it. But to own up to it and apologize or whatever, that's a pretty lightweight example, but you know what I mean. But to hold on to guilt, especially for things that were done years, even decades ago, it serves no one. And the sad part about that is whatever you're feeling guilty about and whoever it is associated with, they are totally clueless as to your guilt. So who's the one that's suffering? And it's you. So find a way to work through that guilt and let it go. Do what you have to atone for it, and allow yourself that, okay, what did I learn from that, and move on. Okay, here's fear. I really love how this turned out. That really, fear is just this small word written down here, but the shadow it creates is humongous. And it's true what, I think it was Winston Churchill, and I apologize if I have this wrong, but the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. And you probably experienced it if you've ever, in the middle of the night, start being fearful about things, and one thing leads into another, and it just builds on itself. That too does not serve us. It holds us back, and really what we need is just confidence in knowing that we can handle whatever comes forward. That too is kind of in line with acceptance. Just accept where you are and just move forward with confidence. And the confidence comes through experience, through watching a small child as they're learning how to walk. They keep getting up and walking, falling down, getting up. So it's that same thing. And at first I wondered so the visual came in that it was like a wishing well, but it's telling us to just dig deep to find that confidence and know that I can handle it. Because that's a big part of fear. Is what we really fear is that we're not able to handle whatever is about to happen. And that's where our strength comes in and our confidence comes in. And that may even be a great mantra for those of you, especially that fear is a big one for you, is I can handle it, I can handle it, or I can handle this, whatever. Oh, and then here we come to the motivation for this topic of truth. And I wrote down every word I could find that is another word for, what do they call that, a synonym for lies, like falsify, misinformation, invention, bluff, perjury, delude. Anyway, there's a bunch of them. And then all of them, lies, 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 lies. And then truth. And I love that hot pink color with the gold orb in the middle. That's our core I see that as more of that, the third eye energy. To thine own self be true. Love that shade of pink. Isn't that pretty? Okay. I'm just proud, not pride. Okay. I did this as soon, oh gosh, was that this morning? No, just last night. I did a major self-sabotage. Well, I broke a beautiful crystal goblet I had to drink my water out of, but because I wasn't being mindful in the moment, when I reached for something else, I wound up tipping it over and it fell. But this meant to look like bullet holes, like we shoot ourselves in the foot. What is self-sabotage? I find that self-sabotage is us continuing the beliefs that no longer serve us. So, like, one of them for me is that I was told at a very young age and constantly that I was a klutz. I'm a klutz. I am not a klutz. I used to be. Okay, we'll just say up until now I've been a klutz. And that's one way. But another way is where, you know, you set up something beautifully and it's all set to go, and then, I don't know, you spill something over, break it, whatever, you lose it. That's a part of us that's oftentimes is a combination of fear, lack of confidence, and insecurity, that we don't believe that can move forward. So the counterbalance that self-sabotage is mindfulness and going with the flow of what's going on. There's a wonderful exercise, and I know I need to practice it more, but it's an interesting exercise where you take about 5 minutes or so. Let's say you're about to go into the kitchen to go to the refrigerator, pour yourself a glass of milk. So what you do is you, in your mind, in your head, just talk yourself through the whole, I'm walking into the kitchen, I'm walking up to the refrigerator, I've got my hand on the refrigerator door, I'm opening the refrigerator door, I see the milk, I'm grabbing the milk, I pull it out. In other words, so that what you're doing is no other thoughts are coming in, you're just singularly focused on everything that you're doing in that moment. And that is I've done it a couple of times and it works great. I need to do it more. But that's a wonderful exercise to practice mindfulness, especially if you have trouble grasping the concept of what mindfulness is, just to be really present in the moment. This one is hatred. I have to admit that throughout the day I catch myself saying, I hate this, I hate that. And it's ridiculous little things that I say, you know, I hate the way this happens, or I hate that. And I was just going to say, and I hate the way that I always say I hate. And in here I wrote down all the things that I've caught myself saying that I hate. And it's what all that does is, this is another one, it's mostly has to do with self-hatred, not so much, anyway, I don't really want to focus on it too much, but this is how all of it is just crushing the heart, crushing the soul. And instead is to focus on understanding. And for some of you, understanding might be I just want to understand where this comes from, or just understand that, oh, there I go again. I said something that I hate about myself. So then immediately go into, well, what do I love about myself? What do I like about myself, if love is too much of an extreme to go to? But this is, the image is of a lotus blossom, these purple hands in prayer, or namaste pose, and understanding, and they're holding this rainbow bowl of unconditional love of daisies. So basically is the way to combat hatred is through understanding of others, especially these days, tolerance and understanding of others. And again, I'll rephrase how I said at the very beginning, that which we don't look in ourselves, we project out onto others. That whatever hatred we have outward is something we're not looking at inside. Okay, this one's a good one. Resentment. This one, it's like the Mount Rushmore carved in stone. It's just rock solid. It's a real intense energy. And down here, it just feels like this is, you know how people line up their logs for the winter for their fireplace. I mean, we can look at it's like all of these resentments are just, and then I'm just going to be walking along that path and just going back and forth, and really, like that song from Frozen, let it go. Just turn on the faucet and let it go. And for those of you who are of a certain age, as me, as I am, what came out here was, and away goes trouble down the drain. You remember that commercial? And then there's another one of, oh, what a relief it is. I won't tell you what commercial that goes with, but anyway, it's just finding a way to let it go. And it could be something as simple as you recognize that there's a resentment. Like right now, there is a certain person that I have a resentment towards, and I'm needing to work through that and let that go. And oh, I just had a thought that maybe every time that comes up is to put a coin or a bean or something that I can put in like a cup or something, just to put it in there, just so I can see how that is just hanging in my heart and my soul, and then decide that, you know what, it's time to let this go. And the fascinating thing is, I know for a fact that this person has no idea that I have this resentment, which I know. So there's the observer side of me that looks at this and says, are you crazy? Why are you holding on to it? You're the only one that's suffering. So it is what it is. And I think what's going on here is that there's a part of me that's wounded that needs some attention and a little bit of unconditional love. So I'm going to continue working on that one. And last and certainly not least is this feeling of being a nobody, that what I have to say has no value, what I do has no value, that others are more important or whatever. And so this feels like it's at the bottom of a well. I try to represent it like it's down in a well. And the counterbalance to that is I am, is allowing myself to be who I am, what I am. And with the hearts all over that, I got the sense of I am love. And that's what we all have to remember, that at our core soul belief system, belief in our hearts, knowing is that we are all love. So what else do you need? So that is my truth. This is only the beginning. It was a way for me to visually get it out of my head and out of the dark recesses of my psyche so that I can see it and look at it, laugh at it, and have a better sense of it. And I want to close out, two things. One, I highly encourage you to explore your own truth, and you could do it as your belief system. You could do it as a sketchbook, or you could do it as on a big poster and just write all over the place, and whatever, or write whatever way, or garden, whatever way that helps you connect with your own inner truth and brings all of this stuff to light. I feel that this particular year is all about finding our own truth. And once we embrace our own truth and stop lying to ourselves, that will then start to reflect outward. And final thing I want to leave you with is, a couple of years ago, I woke up, in that hazy, not quite asleep, but not quite awake yet, twilight zone kind of thing. And I heard this mantra come through, clear as a bell, and it said that I am the light of God, whole and complete, just as I am. And so on my back cover, I expanded on it to say that you are the light of God, whole and complete, just as you are. And we are the light of God, whole and complete, just as we are. Be well. Blessings to you all. Thank you for hanging in there. Bye.